Enjoy listening. Marina always knew her relationship with her mother-in-law wasn't going well, but she never thought it would come to direct confrontation. From the first day they met, Daria Genadievna viewed her daughter-in-law as a temporary misunderstanding in her son's life. 15 years of marriage hadn't changed this attitude. Marina's husband, Georgi, adored his mother and preferred to ignore her barbs directed at his wife. "Mom's just worried. You misunderstood. Don't exaggerate." These were the standard phrases he used to dismiss Marina's complaints. Over time, she stopped sharing her concerns about her mother-in-law with her husband. She simply endured. The arrival of children only worsened the situation. Daria Genadievna sincerely believed she knew everything there was to know about raising children, and constantly criticized her daughter-in-law. Vasia was dressed too warmly, Sonia wasn't fed enough, her activities were improper, her daily routine was disrupted. Marina learned to ignore the criticism, but every interaction with her mother-in-law drained her energy. Georgi bought a Dacha plot 7 years ago, right after Sonia was born. The small but cozy house, 50 kilometers from the city, became a true salvation for Marina. Here, she could escape the hustle and bustle of the city and her mother-in-law's constant supervision. The children adored the Dacha, where they could run through the grass, pick berries, and breathe fresh air. Daria Genadievna didn't like the Dacha. Dirt, dust, mosquitoes. And why invest so much money in this wreck? She grumbled every time her son suggested joining her on a trip out of town. Georgi was upset, but didn't dare insist. This continued until June of this year. Suddenly, Daria Genadievna announced she wanted to spend a couple of weeks at the Dacha. "The doctor recommended fresh air for my blood pressure," she explained to her son. Georgi was delighted. Finally, his mother would appreciate his purchase. Marina didn't object. The children had already finished the school year, and she planned to spend the entire summer at the Dacha. There was plenty of space for everyone. Perhaps her mother-in-law would be less irritable in nature. But at the last minute, Daria Genadievna made a new condition. She wants to relax in peace and quiet, without noisy grandchildren. "Marish, could you stay in the city with the children for a week?" Georgi asked casually the evening before leaving. "Mom needs rest. The doctor said she shouldn't get nervous." "What should we do?" Marina asked, surprised. "We planned everything. The children can't wait to go to the Dacha." "It's only for a week," Georgi shrugged. "Be patient, Mom's not getting any younger." Marina didn't argue. Just a week isn't that long. Especially since her mother-in-law did have health issues. She explained the situation to the children, and although Vasia and Sonia were upset, they agreed to wait. The week was drawing to a close when Georgi returned with an unexpected announcement. Mom felt much better at the Dacha. The doctor recommends she stay for another 10 days. "So what?" Marina looked at her husband with growing concern. "Well, you see," Georgi hesitated. "She says she needs a proper rest without any fuss. So, the kids and I have to hang around in the city for another 10 days while your mother occupies our Dacha." Marina felt anger boiling inside her. "It's not just our Dacha," Georgi replied unexpectedly harshly. "Technically it's my Dacha. Bought it. If my mother needs a break from the grandchildren, then so be it." These words hit Marina like a whip. "My Dacha, my mother, it's up to me. Where do she and the children fit into this equation?" "Fine," Marina said calmly. "As you say. Your Dacha, yes, your mom, your decision." Georgi, who had been expecting a scandal, breathed a sigh of relief. "That's great. I'll go back tomorrow. Mom is there alone after all." That evening, Marina couldn't sleep for a long time. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, hundreds of shared decisions and plans. And here it is, simply my Dacha. It was as if she and the children were temporary tenants in his life. As if they could be evicted at any moment at the mother-in-law's request. In the morning, after seeing her husband off, Marina sat down at the computer. She had come up with a plan. 10 days flew by. Marina was unusually calm and even cheerful. Vasia and Sonia were surprised by their mother's mood, but were glad she wasn't sad about the postponed trip to the Dacha. On the 11th day, the doorbell rang. Georgie stood there, disheveled and clearly furious. "Are you crazy?" he yelled from the doorway, waving some papers. "What have you done?" Marina only smiled, that special smile that comes from someone who knows they've done the right thing. "What are you talking about, dear?" she asked calmly, letting her husband into the apartment. "About this." Georgie threw the documents on the table. "Explain why the hell you sold the Dacha." "Not all of it," Marina answered just as calmly. "Only my share." "What other share?" Georgie clutched his head. "The Dacha is registered in my name." "It was registered." Marina nodded. "Until you transferred half of it to me. 3 years ago. Remember, you said that if anything happened to you, it would be easier for me and the children." Georgie froze, his mouth hanging open. He had indeed transferred half of the Dacha to his wife after his colleague died suddenly of a heart attack at 40. Then Georgie realized he needed to protect his family, and transferred part of the property to Marina. But so much time had passed since then that he had completely forgotten about it. "But why? Why did you do it?" he muttered, confused. "You said it yourself. Your Dacha, your mother, your decisions. So I thought I could do with my share as I saw fit. And so I sold it." "To whom?" Georgie looked at his wife in horror. "To Pavel Sergeyevich. Remember him? Last year he was wondering if we were selling the Dacha. He said he wanted to expand his property. Pavel Sergeyevich was their neighbor at the Dacha, a stern retired military man who kept the property immaculate and tolerated no noise. He had more than one run-in with Daria Genadievna, who managed to irritate even her neighbors with her unsolicited advice. So what now?" Georgie collapsed into a chair. "Do you realize what you've done? Now half of our Dacha belongs to a complete stranger." "Yes," Marina nodded. "And he's already moved in. He says he's very happy with the purchase and plans to start renovating. By the way, your mother wasn't very happy with the new neighbor, especially when he explained to her that it was now their shared space and he didn't like loud music after 9 p.m. Georgie covered his face with his hands. "Mom's hysterical," he said hoarsely. "She says she can't stand being there, that this Pavel Sergeyevich is unbearable. He put up some kind of fence right in the middle of the property." "He has the right," Marina shrugged. "It's his property." "Why, Marina?" Georgie looked up at his wife, confused. "Why did you do it?" "Because I'm tired of being a stranger in my own family," she answered quietly. "Tired of your mother always coming first. Tired of my children having to adapt to her whims. Tired of being a temporary appendage to your life." "But selling the Dacha, not the Dacha but my share," Marina corrected. "And I wasn't going to do that until you kicked me and the children out of our own Dacha, until you declared it your Dacha and it was up to you to decide." "Well, I've made my decision." Vasya and Sonia peered into the room. They'd clearly overheard part of the conversation. "Dad, are we really not going to the Dacha now?" Vasya asked sadly. "You will," Marina answered for her husband. "Pavel Sergeyevich has given you permission to use the property. His grandchildren are about your age. They often come too. I think you'll have fun together." Grandma Sonia looked at her father. "Grandma will go home." Georgie rubbed his eyes tiredly. She was already packing. After the children left, Georgie was silent for a long time, looking at the sales documents. "So what now?" he finally asked. "What next?" "Next, you'll have to decide what's more important to you, your family or your mother's whims," Marina answered calmly. "I'm no longer going to put up with the fact that my children and I are being kicked out of our own home at your mother's behest. You understand that the Dacha is practically useless now." Georgie shook his head. "I won't be able to buy out Pavel Sergeyevich's share. He won't sell it anyway." "Most likely he won't," Marina agreed. "But I wasn't going to deprive the kids of their summer vacation. Come on, I'll show you something." She opened a page with real estate ads on her computer. A photo of a small but neat house with a plot appeared on the screen. "What is this?" Georgie frowned. "Our new summer house," Marina smiled. 10 kilometers from the old one. The money from the sale of the share was just enough for the down payment. I took out a mortgage for the rest. You bought a new Dacha. Georgie couldn't believe his ears. Without me, you and I would have run into the mom versus thing again. Marina shrugged. But I decided everything myself. The location is nice, there's a lake nearby, the kids will love it. And who is this Dacha registered to? It's entirely mine, Marina answered firmly. And my children will relax at this Dacha whenever they want, without regard for their grandmother's whims. Georgie stared at the photo of the new house for a long time. Then he turned his gaze to his wife. You won't forgive me for what I said back then, will you? He asked quietly. I will, Marina placed her hand on his shoulder. But I won't forget and I won't let it happen again. The next day, the whole family went to see the new Dacha. The children were delighted with the lake and the spacious playground nearby. After inspecting the house, Georgie admitted it was a good choice, although he did complain about the state of the roof. We'll fix it, Marina said confidently. The main thing is that it's nice and quiet here. That evening, after the children were already asleep, Georgie sat down with his wife over a glass of wine. I thought a lot yesterday, he said. About us, about Mom, about what happened. Are you right? I let Mom interfere in our lives too often, and it wasn't fair to you and the children. I'm glad you understand that, Marina nodded. But selling the Dacha was too much. I wouldn't have done it. If you hadn't made it clear that the children and I were just temporary tenants in your life, she answered quietly. It hurt, Hera. It really hurt. Georgie lowered his head guiltily. I didn't want to say it. Mom was just pressuring me. You were angry. I found myself caught between two fires and chose Mom as always. Marina finished for him. Yes, Georgie admitted. And that was wrong. My family is you. You should always come first. They had a long conversation that evening about the past, the future, boundaries and respect. About how 15 years of marriage is too much to ruin everything because of my mother's whims. And too much to continue to put up with disrespect. 3 years later, Marina often recalled the day her husband came running, shouting, Are you crazy? The day that changed their family. After the Dacha incident, Daria Genadievna sulked at her daughter-in-law and son for a long time, but eventually reconciled herself, especially when she realized her antics were no longer getting away with it. Georgie learned to say no to his mother and stand up for his family's interests. Not right away, of course. There were breakdowns and relapses into old behavior patterns. But every time he began to succumb to maternal pressure, Marina would simply smile silently at that same Ulkai. And Georgie remembered how his cowardice could end. The new Dacha became a true family nest. Georgie enthusiastically took on the renovation, and soon the small house became a cozy place everyone flocked to at the first opportunity. Even in winter they would go there on weekends, light the stove, grill shashlik, and sled down the neighbor's hill. The old Dacha had to be sold entirely. Pavel Sergeyevich turned out to be an undesirable neighbor for Georgie, and it soon became clear that they couldn't share the property. Daria Genadievna periodically brought up how Marinaka, the affectionate nickname for her daughter-in-law that she adopted after the Dacha incident, had ruined the beautiful place, but no one took her complaints seriously. But her mother-in-law unexpectedly invited her to the new Dacha with pleasure. However, it was only by invitation and for a short time. She even became friends with her neighbor, Klavdia Mikhailovna, a fellow active retiree with extensive gardening experience. Now, Daria Genadievna addressed all her advice and comments to her, making her daughter-in-law's life considerably easier. However, Marina's relationship with her mother-in-law could hardly be called warm. More like an armed neutrality had been established. But after so many years of open and hidden hostility, even this seemed like progress. What truly changed was her relationship with her husband. It was as if Georgie had awakened from a long slumber and realized what a wonderful woman his wife was. How strong, determined, and yet so loving. He began complimenting her more often, helping with the children and the housework not at her request, but of his own free will. He even offered to take her to the movies or restaurants while her grandmother looked after the children, now with Marina's permission. And Marina sometimes caught herself thinking that ill-fated phrase, "My Dacha, my mom, I decide," was the best thing her husband could have said to her, because it was this very phrase that forced Marina to stop being a victim and take control of her life. And every time someone she knew, hearing about the sale of the dacha, asked, "How did you decide?" Marina just smiled that special smile.